When you think about human evolution, it feels like this really, really slow process, right? Something happening over millions of years.
Yeah, that's the standard picture. But what if parts of it are actually speeding up, or at least happening on time scale we can almost see?
Right. That's kind of what we're digging into today. We found this great article, How Humans Are Evolving in Real Time.
And it's fascinating. It really challenges that whole evolution's ancient history idea. It highlights changes happening, well, basically now.
Exactly. Things you wouldn't expect. Like the article talks about shifts in our height, not just upwards, and our bones getting lighter, even our brains.
Brain size, brain shape, jaws, teeth, even our body temperature, apparently. It's quite a list.
It really is. So our mission today, I guess, is to unpack these biological changes the article describes and figure out what they mean for us living today.
Let's do it. This isn't just academic stuff. It connects directly to our health and how we live.
Okay, so where should we start? Height seems like a good one. We all just assume humans are getting taller and taller, yeah.
That's the common thought, definitely. But the article throws a curveball right away. Apparently, around 10,000 years ago, average human height actually went down.
Down? Really? By how much?
Quite a bit, about 10%, according to the research cited, which is pretty significant when you think about it.
Wow, 10%. What happened? Weren't hunter-gatherers supposed to be pretty tall and robust?
They generally were, yeah. But the article connects this decrease to the shift to agriculture.
Farming made us shorter. How?
Well, a couple of things. Early farming diets weren't always as varied or, frankly, as nutritious as the hunter-gatherer diets. Think lots of grains, maybe deficiencies.
Ah, okay. Malnutrition.
Exactly. And also living close together with livestock. Well, that brought new diseases into the mix, which also took a toll.
So farming wasn't all progress, biologically speaking, at least not right away. That's interesting.
It's a trade-off, like a lot of these changes. But the article does say we've bounced back since then.
Oh, absolutely. Since the Industrial Revolution, roughly, with better nutrition, sanitation, healthcare, heights shot back up.
So we're tall again.
Yeah, the article suggests our average heights now are actually pretty similar to those prehistoric peaks, maybe around 9,000 BC level.
So it's been more like a dip and a rebound, a height roller coaster, you could
All
say.
right, roller coaster. I like that. Okay, so heights had its ups and downs. What about bones? I picture our ancestors with these super dense, strong bones from all that running around.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah,
But here's another surprise from the article. Modern human bones are significantly less dense.
less dense.
Yeah, like about half as porous compared to early humans. Much lighter, spongier almost.
Half. Wow, what does that mean for us? Just weaker bones, more break.
Essentially, yeah. It means reduced physical strength, less endurance, and a big one, a much higher risk of things like osteoporosis later in life.
So our comfortable lives are making our skeletons less robust.
That seems to be the implication. The article points to two main drivers, kind of linked. First, that same shift away from intense physical activity with agriculture.
Less chasing mammoths, more planting seeds.
Something like that.
Mm.
And second, our modern sedentary lifestyles. Desk jobs, cars, cities.
Yeah,
Just way less load-bearing activity day to day.
that makes sense. I mean, I sit most of the day. But what if you exercise? Like people who go to the gym run marathons. Does that fix it?
You'd hope so, but the article includes this kind of concerning detail.
Mm.
Even physically active modern people don't seem to fully regain that ancestral bone density.
Really? So even hitting the gym isn't enough?
It seems the consistency and type of strain our ancestors experience daily is just different and hard to replicate with, say, an hour of exercise a few times a week.
Okay, that's slightly worrying. Taller, but maybe built a bit lighter. Now let's shift to the brain. This one really surprised me in the article. Shrinking brains? I thought the story was always bigger, better brains.
That's the classic narrative, absolutely. Our big brains are what make us human, right? But yeah, the article highlights recent research, like really recent, 2022 to 2024, confirming our brains have actually shrunk.
Shrunk. Since when?
Since the last glacial period, so peaking around maybe 17,000 years ago, modern brains are about 12% smaller on average than they were back then.
12%. How much is that in, like, volume?
It's roughly 100 to 150 cubic centimeters. Think maybe the size of a tennis ball, somewhere in that range.
It's tennis ball less brain.
Yep.
Okay. Why? Do we know why?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The article mentions it's still heavily debated. There are a few main theories floating around.
Okay, lay them on me. What are the guesses?
So one idea is the self-domestication hypothesis. You know how domesticated animals often have smaller brains than their wild relatives?
Yeah, like dogs versus wolves.
Exactly. The idea is maybe humans sort of domesticated ourselves, became more social, less reliant on individual aggression, or maybe complex survival skills, leading to smaller brains.
Huh. Like we got tamer?
Sort of. But the article points out a problem: the timing. The brain shrinkage seems to start before some key markers of what they call self-domestication really kick in. So the timeline's a bit off.
Okay, timing doesn't quite fit. What's theory number 2?
That's sometimes called the know-it-all hypothesis, or maybe need to know. The idea is, as societies got complex, you didn't need to know everything to survive anymore.
Ah, specialization. Like, I don't need to know how to track an animal if someone else does it and I can trade them for grain or whatever.
Precisely. Knowledge became distributed in the group, so maybe individual brains didn't need to hold quite as much generalist survival info. But again,
Your timing?
yeah, the timing seems a bit off, according to the article. The major brain shrinkage might predate that level of societal complexity, too.
Okay, so 2 theories with timing issues. What's the third one? The article seemed to think this one was more plausible.
Right, the energy efficiency hypothesis.
Yeah.
This one focuses on just how much energy the brain uses. It's only about 2% of your body weight, but it burns like 20% of your daily calories. It's hugely expensive.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard that. It's an energy hog.
Totally. So the theory goes, as the climate warmed up after the Ice Age, having a slightly smaller brain might have been an advantage.
How? Less energy cost.
Partly that, but also heat. A bigger brain generates more heat. In a warming world, maybe a slightly smaller, more energy-efficient brain that didn't overheat as easily was beneficial. The timing for this one seems to fit a bit better with the climate data.
Interesting. So less about getting dumber, more about thermal regulation and energy saving.
That seems to be the leading idea, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a decline in capability, maybe just optimization.
Okay, that makes it sound a bit less alarming. But the article also mentioned the shape change, not just the size.
Yes, that's another key piece. Even as overall volume maybe decreased recently over a longer period, our brain cases became more rounded. More globular is the term they use.
Globular.
As opposed to the more elongated shape you see in earlier Homo sapiens and other ancient hominins. This shift towards roundness seems to have happened between, say, 100,000 and 35,000 years ago.
And did that shape change do anything for us? Cognitively?
It seems so. The article links this globularization to the expansion of specific brain areas, particularly the parietal lobes.
What do they do?
They're involved in things like spatial reasoning, integrating sensory information, planning,
Yeah.
and also the cerebellum expanded.
Cerebellum, that's movement, right. Balance.
Motor skills, yes. But researchers now think it's also crucial for more complex cognitive stuff, even social cognition, language processing.
So a rounder shape allowed key areas to expand, even if the whole thing got a bit smaller later.
That seems to be the picture. This reshaping is linked to enhanced memory, better self-awareness, language development, complex social behavior. Basically, a lot of the things we think of as uniquely human cognitive abilities.
Okay, so it's a complex picture. Smaller overall volume recently, but a shape change earlier that boosted key functions. Got it. Now, let's move down. Jaws and teeth. The article said they're shrinking too. I can believe that, thinking about my wisdom teeth.
Yeah, you and millions of others. That's a direct consequence discussed in the article. Our jaws and teeth have gotten smaller, especially in the last, say, 10,000 to 30,000 years.
And this is because, let me guess, diet again?
Bingo. Primarily, it's linked to softer diets.
Softer how? Like cooked food versus raw.
Exactly. Cooking, pounding grains, agriculture in general. It reduced the amount of heavy-duty chewing required compared to our ancestors gnawing on tough plants and meat.
Less mechanical stress on the jaw.
Precisely. And that trend has just gone into overdrive with modern processed foods, fast food, things that require very little chewing effort. Less stress signals the body over generations to build a smaller, less robust jaw.
And the downsides are, besides painful wisdom teeth trying to erupt into no space.
Well, that's a big one, misaligned teeth, impaction. But the article also mentions another potential issue: sleep apnea.
How is that related?
A smaller jaw structure can mean a smaller airway at the back of the throat, making it more prone to collapse during sleep.
Wow, never connected those dots.
And they mentioned there's experimental evidence too. Studies on animals show that if you raise them on soft diets, their jaws literally don't grow as large as animals on harder diets.
So it's pretty well established. Our preference for soft food is physically changing our faces.
Over evolutionary time, yeah. Okay, one last change the article covered: body temperature.
Ah, yes. I always learned 98.6 Fahrenheit. Right, like a solid fact.
That was the standard, drilled into us. But the article presents newer data suggesting the average might actually be lower now,
Lower. How much lower?
closer to 97.9 degrees Fahrenheit on average.
Almost a full degree difference. Where does that number come from?
It's based on analyzing huge data sets of medical records spanning back about 200 years. And they see this consistent trend,
What trend?
a slight decrease, decade after decade, about zero point zero 0.05 degrees Fahrenheit lower per decade, consistently over that time.
Whoa, we're literally cooling down, slowly. Any idea why?
The article says it's not totally pinned down yet, but one major hypothesis is reduced inflammation.
Inflammation.
Yeah, chronic low-grade inflammation used to be much more common due to infections, different environmental stresses, modern medicine, sanitation, maybe lifestyle changes mean less overall inflammation in the population. And inflammation tends to raise body temperature slightly.
So less internal simmering means a lower baseline temp.
That's one leading idea. Other factors could be changes in metabolism related to our environment or lifestyle, but the inflammation link seems pretty compelling.
Okay, this is a lot to take in. So wrapping it all up, what are the big takeaways from this article?
I think the main point is just how dynamic human biology still is. We're not some finished product. The article really paints a picture of a modern human who is biologically distinct from our ancestors.
Right, taller now after that dip, but maybe with lighter, weaker bones.
hmm Smaller brains overall, but with a shape that enabled key cognitive leaps earlier on.
And shrinking jaws and teeth, thanks to soft food, causing some modern problems and even running slightly cooler.
Exactly. We're this mix, maybe less physically robust in some ways, more vulnerable to lifestyle diseases because of these changes, but also shaped by advances in nutrition and cognition.
And the really crucial point the article makes is that this isn't just stuff that happened, it's ongoing. Our choices, our environment, technology, it's all still sculpting us.
Absolutely. Evolution isn't just in the past, it's happening right now, influenced by how we live. Understanding these trends is pretty important if we want to, adapt our lifestyles for better health, better cognition, overall well-being.
It really makes you think, recognizing we're still evolving right now. So maybe the final thought to leave people with is, considering all these changes driven by agriculture, technology, lifestyle, what kind of pressures are shaping us now, and what might humans look like biologically another few centuries or millennia down the line?
Yeah, what are the unforeseen consequences of our current way of life? That's the big question, isn't it?